Hello, today I'd like to show you how to use the module for window film and the one film type testing. So what I'd like to do is first I've run a test bid and I'd like to kind of run you through the process of how that would work. So first thing I'm going to do is take you over to the call screen for this bid so that you can kind of see how the flow would be for running a window film bid. Now, I have enabled both, you can see in here I've already got the personal information and I've selected window film, but I've enabled both the window film one type and the window tinting multi-film. So in this case, you can see that the customer has selected one film type and has moved on to see that there's two steps. So we have step one and step two. Step one is basically naming the areas and measuring them. And then step two is talking about what kind of film we're going to use on those areas. Now, on the surface, it looks really, really simple, but in the back end, there's actually a lot of things going on. I'd also like to call your attention to the fact that when the customer enters this in from a website or something like that, they really can only put in the number of feet and the quantity, but they wouldn't have access to something that you have as administrator in the call screen. You can see here, we're in the call screen. We have the ability to put an override in. So in this case, that would mean that we could say that instead of 5 by 5, we're going to say that it's 28 square feet each with a quantity of 2. And we could actually resave the bid with that information. Or we could click the calculator and toggle it back to the measurements that we were originally given. The reason that's important for you to understand is that you aren't limited to just measuring the window. You could, if you wanted, just override the window measurements with a square foot total. Now again, I want to point out that the customer has measured things in terms of feet and they have the ability to add quantities. Also, this menu here, this is all customizable, but the customer had to pick between 4 different window tinting purposes. We'll talk about that as we go through the module. But now that you've seen that, let's just take a quick peek at the customer profile for this customer and see how it looks inside the customer profile. Here's all the information about the customer. We can see they got a bid for window film and said they'd be available in the morning of the 8th. And if we go down and we open up the window film area, this will all look familiar to you. You can see that you have the ability here to change over to the multi-film type. But in here you can see that I've already run the bid. You can see that we have our editability. Here's our calculator. We also have the ability to delete items. So if I wanted to delete this measurement, and I click save, you can see that I can recalculate the quote here as an administrator. I can show the deleted options and actually add them back. Oops, I just added it and deleted it. Let me add it back and then resave the bid again and throw it back in. Also, as the administrator, we have the ability to actually look and see how the price was calculated. And this is something that you're going to understand better as we spend time in the module area, customizing it. But you can see that we have bedroom 1, it's $1 times 50 square feet, $1 times 36 square feet for the living area, and $1 times 36 square feet for the glass doors. And all of that is taken from these measurements. So 5 times 5 is 25, times 2, that's your 50 square feet. Okay? And we can see that 50, 36, and 36 all came together to add to 122. And then, in order to allow for the window tinting purpose of solar control film, we added $427 to the base price. I'm going to show you how that worked. And then just for fun, I went ahead and threw a discount in here just so I could show you how an adjustment works. And we'll talk about that at the end. But that's how the window tinting one film type module would look inside the customer profile and kind of some of the information you can see there. Now, as far as what the customer can see in the proposal, you can see that they got a tinting window film bid. Here is the text for the individual item, and here's the price and the ability to select that price. Now in this case, we opted to do tax not included. I'm going to show you how to include tax. And that is where they put in their availability dates. And of course, they can change those as necessary, or they could also get rid of them. All right, so let's dig into it. First, we're going to go over to Settings and go to Services. And when we get there, you'll see that I have activated both window film type modules. Now, just to make things easier, I'm going to go ahead and deactivate that. If you don't see your window film module here, you can just go over to the inactive tab and find what you want and make it active. But we You go here, and you can either edit by clicking here and clicking edit, or you can click right there. Actually, before I show you this, I want to make something clear. Window film is the name of the service, and window tinting, one film only, is the bidding type. Now, some services only have one bidding type, but window film happens to have two bidding types. And if you scroll up to, I'm sorry, not scroll up, but if you clicked on the smart form and you wanted to see what the customer would interact with, you can see that when they select window film, and refresh this page, when they select window film, that terminology is coming from here. So if you need to change that from window film to window tinting, oops, you can do that. Keep in mind that everything will be organized alphabetically, both here and there. So when I refresh this page, you can see that window tinting is now the service. And you'll also notice that it doesn't give me the choice between two different modules. I'm not going to see the nickname of the option of tinting because I only have one enabled. So as a customer, I'm going to go right into whatever is enabled if there's only one. So just a little bit on how that works. The other thing I'd draw your attention to is we have step 1 and step 2. Draw your attention to the title, the description, and the option for an image. So when I click on window tinting, one film only, you can see that if I had both of them enabled, this is what would be on the button to choose and the description of which item, of what choosing that button would do. Also, in the proposal, you remember that I showed you this. This looks familiar probably to you. You can see that there in the proposal. Well, the reason that we consciously did not enable tax here is that that was just a personal decision that I made. I could just as easily say that tax is included. Okay? And now if I was to refresh the bid, it now says tax is included. The price didn't change, and that's because we make that decision here, and then we account for that decision in step 3 when we're setting up our pricing. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. So that's step 1. If you want to have package items, that won't make a ton of sense, I don't think, in the window tinting world. But if you want to have a basic package that has value 1, value 2, maybe turn on the deluxe package, offer a couple values there, you can do that. But in our case, I don't think it's going to make a ton of sense. And so I'm just going to do an individual item, and we're not going to sell good, better, and best. We're just going to sell the price of the window film. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go to step 2. Now step 2, again, you can see there's 3 factors. One of them is disabled. One is a help video. Now the purpose of this help video is actually described better when you click up on here and it shows you how exactly you use it. But let's say that you have a YouTube video that explains how to measure windows, or maybe the differences between window film types or things like that. Probably isn't going to be so much a marketing piece as a help piece. This will be actually dynamically entered into the bid. And if you want to enter it into a different place in the bid, you can just click on the sort factors, and you could actually make it so that the window tinting is step 1, and then if the video was enabled, it would become step 2, and this would become step 3. So you can reorder things however you'd like. And then you'll just put in the little, we call it the query code right after youtube.com, and that would be what you insert into here. Again, little help there. You can read that, but we're going to disable that for now and just move on to the measurement areas and the description of how we'd like to, what film we're going to use. So first we want to collect from the customer some measurements, but we have a couple things I can see. Here's the title. I'm going to enable editing here. And you can see here's the image and here is the description. Again, if you look over here, you can see there's the title, the description, and there's the image. Now, you can customize this description however you need to, prepare somebody to begin their measuring. But in this case, you can see that we've got a predefined menu and the ability to enter in the measurements and the quantity. Now, the reason it works that way is because we have infinite measurements allowed, and when infinite measurements are allowed, we do allow people to put in a quantity of that. But you can also set this to be only a certain number of measurements. If you wanted to limit this to, say, 20 windows or 10 windows, we don't allow the quantity at that point. And what that means, let me go back to infinite. If I turn quantities off, when I go to the smart form and I refresh this page, and I click on window tinting, you'll notice that there is no quantity box anymore. That means that I would have to measure each window individually, and if I have a 5 by 5 window in that room, I would have to do another bedroom window that's 5 by 5 individually. So that's what quantity means. You can choose to use that option or not, but if you turn quantities on, then when we refresh this page and we look at window tinting, you'll see that it's back. And there it is. So we could say that we have a bedroom that's 5 feet by 5 feet, and just like last time, but a little bit different, we'll just say quantity 2, and that's been handled. The next area is increments. Now, the unit of measure is just a label. Now, you need to understand that because it's going to come into play really important in a few different ways. Number one is, if I say inches is my unit of measure, ResponsiBid is not going into all of your past bids and converting them from feet to inches. It's not going to convert 12 inches or 1 foot down to 12 inches each, or 5 feet to 60 inches. It's going to leave everything in the same numbers, but it's going to change the label to inches. So you'll want to set this at the outset and make sure it's right. The other thing you want to make sure is if you change inches, you're going to need to change things like this title to say inches. And you'll need to make sure definitely when we go to step 3 that you're not pricing by the square foot anymore. Now we're pricing by inches, so you're going to have to change your pricing to match up with that. So keep in mind that changing, and that's fine, inches makes a lot of sense in tinting, but if you do decide to go to inches, keep in mind that you will need to bring everything into alignment with inches. Okay? Now you can add as many window styles as you like, and this is really important that you notice this, is that as I add a window style, let's say that I want to allow for a picture window. So I add the style, I'm going to click on Edit, Enable Editing, and what it's asking me here is, do you need to read this article if you're going to change and edit this? And there's a reason for that. Let's say that I go in and I have door glass that's been around for a long time. Let's say I want to change it to glass door. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, all of my past bids that have told me that they have a 5 foot by 5 foot door glass that needs to be tinted, if I change it to a 5 foot by 5 foot glass door, it still makes sense. But if I was to change door glass to picture window, well, guess what? Now, when I change that, all of the people who've told me they have a 5 foot by 5 foot door glass are now telling me they have a 5 foot by 5 foot picture window. Not the biggest deal, but you need to understand that that's what you'd be doing if you edited the name to change the meaning as opposed to just rephrasing it a different way. So always rephrase, never change the meaning if at all possible, especially once you've gotten bids. If you haven't gotten any bids before, then it won't matter. The other thing is that you can also enable editing and delete an option. So maybe you don't want to offer door glass anymore. So you can delete it, and that's fine. All of your bids in the past that have used door glass will still show that option. But moving forward, no one will be able to see that anymore. If you want to re-enable it, all you have to do is just say, yep, I want to enable it by showing the deleted options, and then click yes, and now you're back in business. Throw it in however you'd like. And now you have your predefined menu. Add as many options as you like. Always make sure you use an other category if you plan to try and do a predefined menu. I suggest that because if a customer is trying to do a bid and they don't see their window style there, they're going to freak out. So other will allow that. Also keep in mind that these labels, the reason open labels works, which I'll talk about that in a second, is because these don't have any financial difference. These are going to basically be just for your convenience to understand what windows were measured how. Now open labels works a little differently. Let's go back over to the smartphone, and since I've switched that, notice that was a drop-down menu, but now when I click on it, instead of a drop-down menu, I'm going to actually have to type in a window in master bedroom. Okay, and now they'll measure it 4 by 7, and they have 2 of those. Okay, and every time they add an area, they're going to have to type it in. Very custom, but a little more time-consuming, and I don't think it's quite as intuitive, but it'll depend on your use case and your area, how you want to do it in your business. But that's what open labels means. So as you get your measurement area set up, that's all of your options. The title, the image and description for the header, if you want to allow infinite measurements or not, if you want to allow quantities or not, assuming you have that is infinite, what units you want to use, and if you're using a predefined menu, all the window styles you want to make available. The next item that we're going to collect is the tinting purpose. Now you could change the wording here and say window film type. And you can change that from solar control to ceramic solar control and another one. You could go ahead and add different like actual models like Matico SB221 or something like that. And what that would allow you to do is to go into here, and you could actually go in here and say Matico SB221, a great choice for people looking for this, that, or the other. Night vision, 3M night vision, or just whatever it is that you use, so that you can describe to the customer why they might select that particular film. So you can be creative here if you'd like, but keep in mind you can add as many conditions as you'd like. There's a lot of flexibility here. Same applies here. If you change security film to something else, just keep in mind that anyone who's used security film in the past, you're actually messing with bids that have been done in the past. You're changing the name of that label. So don't change what it means, just change the context or maybe the wording of how you want to put it out there, specifically once you've got it up and running. All right, so that's step 2. That's where we collect the information from the customer. Step 3 is how you want to price it. Now, for window tinting one film type, this is a little bit of and I'm going to say confusing, because it does make a lot of sense, but it's following the pattern of all of our modules. It's kind of following the same pattern that we've used in other places in different modules, and we're trying to keep everything nice and unified in the way that you would experience it as an administrator. And in doing so, this particular step for this particular module, you need to fully understand what's going on here. So in terms of window tinting square feet, I'm going to go ahead and use $1 as the base price. And I'm doing that for a very specific reason, to make things a lot easier for my square feet. I know that I charge $1 per square foot, and I multiply, so that's how I get my base price. So if I have a job that comes out at 500 square feet, my base price is 500. But I don't charge 500 for solar control film, nor do I charge 500 for any film that I have. But if I set it to $1, now my fine tune has something really easy to hook into. So for example, solar control, I always charge $4.50 with solar control, but if I was to charge it with tax, because obviously in my area, labor is not taxed. So if I want to actually include tax here, I might actually charge $5. So I'm going to put 400%, and I'll explain why. And now I'm accounting for tax per square foot on the material and not taxing the labor. So I know my combined cost is, let's say, $2.50 with tax for the film plus $2.50 for labor. So now what I would do is I'd say to arrive at $500 or $5 per square foot, I would get my $1 plus an additional 400%. What's 400% of a dollar? $4. So now it's $1 plus $4 for solar control film, and that is a tax-inclusive price. Now for opaque frost, maybe it's a little bit different for you, but just depends on kind of what you want to do. I'm going to leave tax in there. So there we go. So now for opaque frost, if I want to include tax, I might change that percentage. And you can see that you could charge a specific dollar amount, but the problem with that is that if someone says they want solar control film and you change it to a dollar amount, what ResponsiBid's going to do is it's going to say, okay, then I'm going to charge $1 plus I'm going to charge $5. Let's say $5. So if I say I have 500 square feet, it'll be $500 because it's 500 times $1. And in this case, it's only going to add $5. That's a huge problem, right? Because we don't want to make it a $505 job. We want to do a $500 job times $5. So there's your $2,500 job. So we need to make this a percentage, and we need to make it a percentage that will be added to. So now we're at $5 per foot. Okay. Now let's just talk about inches for a minute, specific to this module. For this particular module, if you decide that you want to change to inches, and you change this label to say inches, at this point, your customers are all going to start measuring in inches. Your technicians are going to talk in inches, and every number that ResponsiBid spits out in terms of measurements will always be either inches or square inches. We're not going to go back to feet anymore. Again, ResponsiBid's agnostic. It doesn't care. It's just throwing a label out there. So if we go to step 3, Now, are we going to want to charge $1 per inch? No way. In fact, if I charge, let's just use $5 per square foot. So if I have a square foot and I charge $500 for that, well, I need to divide that, let's take 5. I need to divide that by 144 square inches, right? Because 144 square inches makes up a square foot. So now I know that I charge 3 cents, 3.47 cents per square foot. So this is the part where you might need to think a little bit harder, but once you do this, you're done. So we're going to say, instead of charging $1, I'm going to charge 0.1. There's 1 cent. And what was that again? That was 3.47 cents. Okay, so now I need to get the additional 2 cents, 2.47 cents. So when I go here, I'm going to multiply that by an additional 247%. What's 247% of a cent? That's going to be an additional 2.47 cents. Okay? So by doing that, now I'm in square inches, and I have converted this so that when someone measures a window that's 60 inches by 60 inches, now everything will make sense. But what would happen to all of my bids that I've already done that are in terms of feet? Well, until I rerun the bids, a window that's measuring at 5 feet by 8 feet, if I rerun that quote, it's going to rerun it at 5 inches by 4 inches. So you can see there's a huge problem with what that could do to your past bids. So you want to make sure you understand this and set it up right from the start. So I'm going to go ahead and move this back to square feet just for the purposes of, actually we decided that we just make that $5 a foot. What do I need to do still? I need to go back to my labels here. Okay, we're ready to move forward. So in step 3, you can see that I am upcharging. I'm not going to ignore, and I'm not going to set every bid to bid in person, but I'm going to upcharge $1, and I'm going to add 400% to that dollar to achieve my $5 per foot solar control film. Now security, you'll see that I'm not using an upcharge. I'm actually doing something called bid in person. What that means is that if someone gets a bid with security film, I might need to talk to them about thickness, maybe about bomb blast, maybe I need to talk about, Dow Corning in the sides. So in this case, I'm not going to let a bid go through for a consumer. I'm going to make sure that I have to give my override for that specific customer. And we'll talk about it with them. So they'll collect the information, but it's not going to let the pricing go through until we've overridden this factor. Same goes for opaque frost. We're going to do a 415% upcharge. And for privacy, we're going to do a 500% upcharge. So that's how that would work. You're not going to probably use ignore or discount in this area. It just won't make much sense for this particular module. But for consistency's sake, you'll see that this input is around quite often. All right, the final step of this module is step 4. Now step 4, if you go up to settings and you go into your form builder, you'll notice that in the form builder area, you're able to set up all your cities, which you'll need to do ahead of time. You'll set up all the house size options, and you're able to set up minimums for those. So in the case of basic, deluxe, or premium pricing, you can set it up so that you have specific floors for specific cities or house sizes, and you can even add trip charges in this area for specific cities. So there's more about that and learning how the form builder works, but you'll notice that every module allows you to determine if you want to have an area minimum, say for a specific city, a house size minimum, so if someone lives in a 5,000 square foot house to 6,000 square foot house, maybe you don't want the price to ever drop below a certain amount. Trip charges for a specific city that they're in. Do you want that to apply? Or do you want to apply a dollar minimum to this packet, to this module? So in this case, if someone says that they have 10 square feet of film that they need installed, you could use this as a way of saying, that's fine, it comes out to, let's say, $50, but I am not going to show them $50 because we don't ever do a job for less than $500, so therefore I will just show them it's a $500 job. So you can turn that on or off, same for all of these. You can also do a measurement minimum. This is going to be a really nice thing to enable for this particular module. This will allow you to say that if someone measures a window that's 1 foot by 1 foot, well, that's a 1 square foot window, and for tinting, you're probably going to set some sort of a floor to calculate against. So if someone says they have a 1 foot by 1 foot window, Well, ResponsiBid is going to say that's all well and good, but we're still going to pretend that it's a 4 square foot window whenever we're calculating the price. We're not going to calculate areas under 4 square feet. We're going to use that as our minimum. Now, if someone says they have 2 1x1 windows and they call you over, you're still not going to want to go out for just 8 square feet because that's what ResponsiBid is going to do. It's going to count those 2, in this case, as 8 square feet. So what you can do is also say the total area must be 50 square feet or more. So we have 2 8 square foot areas, so to speak, right? And ResponsiBid says, well, that's still too low. So when we go to spit out the price, we're going to assume that the area is 50 square feet. So there's kind of some nice safety valves for you to make sure that you're not going out to do jobs that are too small. And if you do turn on the volume discount area, this is an area where you could actually say, maybe for big commercial jobs, take 5% off of any job that is 100 square feet or more. Well, that's too small, but let's say take 5% off of any job that's 250 square feet or more. Take 7% off of any job that is 500 square feet or more. And you could just keep adding these in. And obviously, for really big commercial jobs, you might even get up into the 10,000 square feet areas. So that's an option for you to be able to have that calculate in. And then the final area here is the bid disclaimer. This is the disclaimer that will show in the proposal right here. And this is a proposal that put together. Service details, this is when the price comes through. But let's say someone put that they wanted security film. Well, no prices are going to go through, so this is the bid in person disclaimer. This is what they would see in place of that. We're going to have to look at this job in person. We'll be in touch shortly. If you can type. Ha! Okay, so now that we've got that, you can also decide if you want to have this disclaimer collapsed or expanded by default. So you can see here it's expanded by default. If I was to go into here and say just collapse it by default, the difference is that when I refresh this page, you would notice that you have to click it to see it. So that's your choice as to whether you want to have that open or closed by default. All right, so now we've set up a whole bid. Let's kind of talk about playing around with the bid. So I'm going to go back over to that test bid that I did. And this is how you're going to kind of make sure that your pricing is good. Just get a bid. You can do one from the call screen or from the smartphone if you like. And then once you get in here, now you can, as the administrator, just kind of start playing around with it. So let's say that instead of solar control film, we're going to do security film. Well, you already know what's going to happen, don't you? We're going to click Save. It's going to come back as bid in person. This is what the customer would see. We're going to have to look at this job in person. No pricing, no options. So we go, we look at it, and we talk to the customer, and we decide, okay, we know what we need to charge for this. They're going to use this particular film. So what you'll do is, you'll see it's a $122 base price, plus you're going to need to add in for the fact that it's security film. So let's say that it's going to be an additional $700 in addition to the base price. Now I have a good customer discount I added in here just for fun. We'll talk about that more. But when I click Save, now that I've added in my override, you can see that the override has been taken care of, and there is our 700 plus 122, that's 822, minus $25 for a good customer discount. Now, when you add an adjustment, there's a new adjustment I just added. Let's put something in here called, we're going to charge extra because they want to have caulked edges. So let's say we want to upcharge them. So we already gave them a discount, which you can give by just clicking here. But let's say we're going to charge an additional $500 for caulked edges. Okay, so I go ahead and click Save. I now click again, and now my $500 has been added in, and I can see that I added $500 for caulked edges. Now that's for security. You can see originally the customer said they wanted solar control, but we could also go in and just change it back to opaque frost, which we don't. That won't be a bid in person item. That already knows what to charge. So it's charging the 122 base plus I think we had 415% for the window tinting purpose of opaque frost. So now we've got that, plus we still have our caulked edges. Maybe we want to get rid of that. Click Save. And now we're not caulking the edges, but we have opaque film, opaque frost. So that is how you would adjust it. One other feature that measurement areas give you is that you'll have the ability to override. I've already talked about this calculator, and you can put in your square footage here if you choose, which is just as simple as saying, maybe this is a 30 square foot area. We're going to ignore those measurements. We'll rerun the quote. The other thing, you can see the original bedroom one was 5 feet by 5 feet with a quantity of 2. You can see now we have a 30 square feet, quantity 2. But you also see this trash can. So if we get rid of that area, and we click Save, now the price is all changed up. So kind of like we talked about before. So you can see that there's been adjustments. You can see that the price is there, and now you can kind of default see how it's pricing. As I play around with this and I start throwing in bids and I keep adding new areas and I start messing around with this and I've kind of got it to where I want it, this is the part where you'll start throwing in some window styles and maybe run the bid that way. And that's how you play around with it. That's how you'll make sure that everything works great for you. If you have any questions, never hesitate to either hit the chat bubble here, or don't ever forget, you can also go into the services area and go into that specific module that you have questions about. You could click here or this help button, and that'll open up a page that will give you kind of more step-by-step searchable instructions on how to use all the different areas of the module. I'm Kurt Kenton, and I'm happy to have shown you how to use the Window Tinting 1 Film module.